For your entire life, the prevailing narrative has insisted that ignoring reality is the definition of madness, that only the unhinged refuse to acknowledge established facts. Carl Jung, however, uncovered a profound truth that radically upends this belief. For him, the calculated rejection of external reality was not insanity, it was the ultimate expression of sanity. Individuals who mastered this psychological principle didn't just transform their personal lives. They literally reshaped the world around them. Jung argued that the vast majority are confined within what he termed a false reality, an existence crafted entirely by the beliefs, fears, and perceived limitations of others. You are unknowingly residing within a psychological prison constructed by strangers. Jung dedicated decades to dissecting a specific psychological mechanism that enables certain individuals to completely override this fabricated reality. He named this powerful mechanism psychic reality. Understanding how to wield this tool grants access to what Jung described unequivocally as instant manifestation. This theory has nothing to do with superficial positive thinking, vision boards, or simple affirmations. Instead, it involves deeply understanding a measurable pattern Jung rigorously documented throughout his clinical practice. Consider a composite case profile derived from his detailed observations. A patient walked into his office completely broken and defeated. Just 6 months later, that same individual had fundamentally transformed their entire existence simply by refusing to accept one critical, defining fact about their current life. They chose to ignore reality, and reality subsequently bent to align with their unwavering inner conviction. I will now demonstrate exactly how this process operates. But first, we must confront the foundational reason why every lesson you've ever received about external reality is intrinsically designed to keep you powerless. Society has conditioned you to believe that being realistic is a moral virtue, that accepting your limitations demonstrates maturity, and that facing facts is the only adult response. Jung exposed this as a fundamental lie, a collective trauma response cleverly disguised as conventional wisdom. When you were young, you operated from a default setting where everything was possible. You lived vividly within your imagination, effortlessly generating entire worlds in your mind. Then, the adults intervened, instructing you to stop, to grow up, and to be realistic. They systematically punished your expansive inner world while rewarding your compliance with external consensus. Jung argued this mandate is entirely backwards. Your inner world is, in fact, the authentic world. The external reality you perceive is merely a projection, a shadow cast by the collective unconscious. By accepting external reality as the only reality, you willingly surrender your intrinsic power, becoming a passive passenger in your own narrative, allowing the beliefs of others to dictate the boundaries of your potential achievements. Here is the genuinely disturbing truth that Jung unearthed through his research. Every single limitation you currently accept as fact was initially placed there by someone else. Your inherent belief that you are not smart enough, not talented enough, or not worthy enough did not originate within you. These judgments were projected onto you by parents burdened by their own unfulfilled potential, by teachers focused on maintaining a rigid system, and by a society that requires you to remain small so as not to disrupt the collective agreements everyone else is invested in maintaining. You have been subjected to mass-scale gaslighting, convinced that the psychological prison you inhabit is merely reality, that the chains around your potential are simply the way things are. Jung defined this pervasive agreement as the collective unconsciousness. And the sole viable method for achieving genuine freedom is to take the radical step of ignoring the very reality they so adamantly insist is true. A choice guaranteed to make everyone around you uncomfortable. Here is the neuroscientific discovery Jung made that fundamentally chilled him to the bone. The human brain is utterly incapable of differentiating between a vividly generated imagination and an actual external event. Reflect on your last intense nightmare. You woke up drenched in sweat, your heart pounding, perhaps even shaking. The monster in your dream was imaginary, but the physiological response, the sweat on your skin, the sheer terror in your body, was undeniably real. Your brain processed that internally created experience, exactly as if it had physically occurred. This is not a metaphor. This is established neuroscience. Your amygdala cannot distinguish between a deeply etched memory and a detailed, vivid imagination. When you imagine something with sufficient sensory detail and emotional intensity, your brain releases the identical chemicals it would deploy if the event were unfolding right now. Your muscles tense identically. Your heart rate shifts identically. Your respiration adjusts identically. Jung named this powerful feedback loop psychic reality, the undeniable psychological fact that your internal experience registers with your nervous system as just as real as any external stimulus. When you hold an imagined state with absolute conviction, your brain immediately begins preparing your body to align with that new reality. It adjusts hormone levels. It alters your posture. It changes the subtleties of the way you speak and move. And here is the truly transformative, yet somewhat terrifying aspect. Other people instantaneously respond to these unconscious, broadcasted signals. They begin treating you in a way that matches the reality your brain believes you should be treated. This isn't magic. This is sophisticated psychology. Consider the consistent dynamics Jung observed across numerous clinical cases. Patients who wholly revise their lives simply by refusing to accept external limitations. Let me systematically break down precisely how this psychological mechanism is operationalized. Step 1. Withdrawal of projection. This mechanism serves as the absolute foundation. You must cease the belief that the world is simply happening to you right now. What is occurring is that you are projecting your pre-existing beliefs onto reality, and then you are interpreting those projections as if they were objective, external facts. If someone treats you poorly, you project the belief that you are not good enough. If you fail at a task, you decide you are inherently incapable. These are psychological projections, not verifiable facts. Jung trained his patients to immediately recognize when they were imposing their own internal narratives onto external events. Once you clearly recognize your projections, you can consciously withdraw them. You halt the cycle of allowing external circumstances to define your internal reality. This is the first critical step toward ignoring reality in the Jungian sense. You are not ignoring what is physically happening. You are refusing to accept the meaning you have been trained to assign to what is happening. Here is how this operates in practice. Someone criticizes you at work. The external, physical event is merely words leaving their mouth and entering your ears. That is the physical reality. Everything else is projection. The meaning you assign to those words, the story you tell yourself about what the criticism implies about your personal worth, the fear you suddenly feel about losing your job, all projection. When you successfully withdraw projection, you see the criticism simply as information, nothing more. Maybe it is useful information, maybe it is not. But crucially, it does not define you. It does not mean anything about your fundamental value as a person. You have successfully separated the external event from the psychological meaning you were conditioned to attach to it. This separation is freedom. This is the genesis of psychic sovereignty. Step 2. Active imagination. This is emphatically not daydreaming. Jung was exceptionally specific about this process. Active imagination is a meticulously controlled psychological technique where you purposefully enter your unconscious realm with your eyes open. You must generate a vivid, sensory-rich mental image of the reality you intend to inhabit, not holding it as a mere fantasy, but as a verifiable psychological fact. You see yourself, already, living in that reality. You feel the emotions you would feel. You hear the conversations you would have. You experience it so completely that your brain loses the ability to distinguish between the mental image and an actual memory. Jung discovered that when this technique is practiced with sufficient intensity, a transformative phenomenon occurs. Your unconscious mind begins treating the imagined reality as if it already exists. And since your unconscious governs the majority of your non-conscious behavior, the way you walk, the tone in your voice, the micro-expressions on your face, the spontaneous decisions you make, all of this immediately begins to align with the reality you are maintaining in your imagination. This is where most practitioners fail. They visualize their desired reality for 30 seconds while brushing their teeth and then wonder why nothing changes. Active imagination demands commitment. You need to allocate substantial time to genuinely inhabit your psychic reality. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. This must be long enough for your nervous system to fully accept the premise, long enough for the experience to write itself into your body as if it were a lived memory instead of a deliberate imagination. And you must engage all your senses. Do not merely visualize. Hear the distinct sounds of your new reality. Feel the textures. Smell the air. Taste the food you would eat. The greater the sensory detail you incorporate, the more authentic it becomes to your brain. The more authentic it becomes to your brain, the more your unconscious mind starts aligning your behavior with that reality. Step 3. The reality distortion field. This is the point where the process becomes profoundly effective and arguably dangerous. When you maintain a mental image with absolute, unshakable conviction, you inevitably start behaving differently. And when your behavior changes, other people automatically respond differently. Jung documented this thoroughly with his concept of shadow projection. If you project absolute authority, people unconsciously defer and obey. If you project complete confidence, people instinctively trust you, not because you are lying, but because your brain genuinely believes the reality you are holding. And that conviction is broadcasted through every cell of your body. This creates what modern psychology frequently terms a self-fulfilling prophecy. But Jung grasped this principle at a far deeper level. You are not just predicting the future and causing it to happen. You are inhabiting a psychic reality so completely that external reality has no fundamental choice but to reorganize itself around the sheer force of your inner conviction. People who no longer fit your new reality naturally fall away. Opportunities that perfectly match your inner state spontaneously appear. Synchronicities begin to stack up until it creates the illusion of pure magic. Think about anyone you know who exudes genuine confidence, not abrasive arrogance, but true, centered confidence. They walk into a room and people instinctively orient toward them. They speak, and others actively listen. They ask for necessary resources and invariably receive them. Why? Because their psychic reality is completely coherent. Their brain believes, deep down, they deserve respect. So their body broadcasts that belief instantaneously via 10,000 microsignals others pick up unconsciously. Posture, vocal tone, eye contact, facial expressions, all of it aligned with the inner reality they hold. You possess the capacity to do the exact same thing. But here is the critical warning Jung issued, the dangerous downside that most people recklessly ignore. If you ignore external reality excessively, without maintaining a grounding tether, you risk inducing psychosis. Jung witnessed this pattern repeatedly in clinical settings where patients took active imagination too far, individuals who completely lost touch with physical constraints, believing they could fly and stepping off buildings, thinking they were invincible, and consequently destroying their lives. The difference between a true genius and a madman is meticulous control. The genius consciously employs psychic reality as a powerful tool. The madman believes psychic reality is the only reality. Jung termed this pitfall ego inflation. When you identify absolutely with the reality you are generating, you disconnect from the necessary friction of the physical world. You stop paying your bills because you are manifesting abundance. You ignore your health because you are visualizing perfect wellness. You destroy relationships because you are holding an image of unconditional love that no actual human being can provide. This is the shadow side of ignoring reality, and it is a destructive force if you fail to respect the boundary. The key is integration. You hold your psychic reality with absolute conviction, while simultaneously remaining meticulously grounded in physical reality. You visualize abundance while also checking your bank account. You imagine perfect health while also going to the doctor. You create an internal reality of unconditional love while also setting firm boundaries with actual humans. This precarious balance is the dance. This is precisely what separates genuine transformation from mere delusion. Let me give you a narrative illustration based on the consistent patterns Jung observed. Consider the story of an aspiring artist struggling with repeated failure. This person had undeniable talent, but kept getting rejected, kept running out of money, and kept hitting insurmountable professional walls. Through dedicated therapeutic work focused on active imagination, they began spending 1 hour every day inhabiting the psychic reality of being a highly successful artist, not hoping to be successful, not wishing to be successful, but viscerally experiencing the felt sense of already being successful. Within 3 months, everything shifted. The patient began carrying themselves differently. They started speaking with more authority about their work. They started making professional decisions from a place of abundance instead of scarcity, and the external world responded. Gallery owners who had previously ignored them suddenly requested meetings. Collectors who had passed on their work came back asking for pieces. Opportunities materialized seemingly out of nowhere, not because the universe was rewarding generalized positive thoughts, but because the patient had fundamentally changed the psychic reality they were broadcasting, compelling the external world to reorganize in response. But we also see this dynamic clearly in composite cases, where individuals took it too far. Consider an example based on Jung's warnings about inflation. A man decided he was destined to be wealthy. He rashly quit his job, stopped looking for employment, and sat at home, focusing solely on visualizing money. He ultimately ended up homeless. This was not a failure of manifestation. It was because he fatally confused psychic reality with physical reality. He ignored the physical world completely. He did not take action. He just sat in his imagination and expected reality to change without any effort on his part. This illustrates the razor-thin line Jung cautioned against. You use psychic reality to radically change your internal state. That improved internal state modifies your behavior. Your behavior changes how people react to you. How people react to you alters your opportunities. Your opportunities, in turn, change your external reality. But if you try to skip these crucial middle steps and simply expect external reality to shift because you imagined it, you are guaranteed to meet disaster. Jung identified specific archetypes to help explain this distinction. The magician archetype represents someone who understands they are employing psychic forces to effect change in the physical world. They respect both worlds. They use imagination as a tool, but remain firmly grounded in action. The trickster archetype represents someone who becomes utterly lost in the game, who starts believing their own illusions, who thinks they can manipulate reality without consequences. The magician thrives. The trickster crashes. Here is what separates them. The magician knows precisely when to cease imagining and commence doing. They use psychic reality to anchor their desired state, and then they take massive physical action from that state. The trickster merely continues imagining, keeps visualizing, keeps waiting for external reality to catch up to their fantasy, which it never does, because they refuse to bridge the gap between their inner and outer worlds. The magician understands that psychic reality functions as the vital seed, but seeds require fertile soil. They need water. They need sunlight. Active imagination plants the seed deep within your unconscious, but you are still absolutely required to take physical action in physical reality. You still need to show up, make calls, send emails, have conversations, do the work. The only difference is that you are doing all of that from a completely altered internal state, and that revised internal state changes everything about how you execute the work and how the world responds to you. Now, let me tell you about the phenomenon Jung termed synchronicity. This is the climax, the element referred to as instant manifestation in the title. It is the moment when your inner conviction becomes so overwhelmingly strong that the outer world seems to momentarily glitch in order to align perfectly with it. Jung spent years meticulously studying meaningful coincidences, events that appear too perfectly timed to be the result of mere chance. A person intensely thinks of an old acquaintance they haven't spoken to in years, and that person calls 5 minutes later. Someone desperately needs a specific opportunity, and it materializes the very next day, seemingly out of nowhere. Jung discovered these are not random accidents. They are synchronicities. They are moments when your psychic reality achieves such a coherent, so unwavering state that external reality shifts to align with it. This is the instant part, not because change happens literally overnight, but because there is a distinct threshold, a powerful tipping point. You maintain your inner reality with enough conviction for long enough, and suddenly, everything clicks into place simultaneously. Opportunities stack, doors open, people appear, resources flow. It may appear to others as overnight success, but it was, in fact, weeks or months of intense internal alignment finally manifesting externally. This is what people who master Jungian manifestation experience. They do not gradually improve. They hit a critical mass of inner conviction, and then reality snaps into alignment all at once. Jung documented this pattern repeatedly in his work. Patients who struggled for months and then had breakthrough weeks where their entire life structure reorganized. Their life had fundamentally reorganized, not through sheer luck, but because they had generated such immense psychic momentum that external reality was compelled to align itself. However, the crucial distinction often missed is this: you cannot ignore the physical facts of life, like the bus speeding toward you. That is, inviolable physical reality. You cannot simply manifest your way out of that collision. What you must ignore are the limitations others impose upon you. The social reality that insists you are not capable enough, smart enough, talented enough, or connected enough. These are baseless projections, not verifiable facts. When you actively reject these collective pronouncements, when you choose to inhabit an internal psychic reality where your worth is absolute, the world outside necessarily begins to bend to accommodate your conviction. I need to ground this concept before it drifts into sounding like pure fantasy. Carl Jung was not advocating for some sort of magical thinking. He was defining psychological sovereignty, the profound internal power to choose the reality you inhabit internally, completely independent of the prevailing external circumstances. Most individuals allow external circumstances to relentlessly dictate their internal condition. A setback occurs, and they feel instantly defeated. Success strikes, and they feel suddenly empowered. They are living a completely reactive existence. Jung proposed the precise opposite approach. You must establish your internal state first. You deliberately choose the psychological reality you intend to inhabit, and then you permit the external world to play catch-up. This is not about ignoring difficulties. It means you simply refuse to allow those problems to define the boundaries of what you believe is possible. You fully acknowledge the hard, physical facts while simultaneously rejecting the attached psychological limitations. Consider a practical illustration. You lose your job. This is a cold, physical fact that cannot be denied. But the meaning you assign to that event is entirely negotiable. In the common psychic reality, most people spiral. They feel like failures, question their self-worth, and panic about financial security. That is one interpretation. Alternatively, you can inhabit a completely different reality. You could perceive the job loss as necessary space being cleared for something infinitely better. You might feel a surge of excitement regarding new directions and possibilities. You could experience this event as profound freedom rather than personal failure. It is the same physical starting point, but an utterly transformed psychic reality. The internal reality you choose immediately determines the subsequent path. If you opt for the reality of defeat, you will present yourself at interviews as desperate, low energy, and tentative. Others will instinctively pick up on this, and they will not hire you. Your fear will simply manifest more circumstances confirming that fear. If, however, you choose the empowered reality, your presentation shifts entirely. You will interview with genuine confidence. You will negotiate with boldness. You will naturally attract opportunities that resonate with your high-level energy. Same external trigger, yet profoundly different results. All because you rejected the social narrative which dictates that job loss equates to failure. This, fundamentally, is what Jung meant by ignoring reality. It is not denying the facts. It is refusing to accept the collective interpretation of those facts as the sole valid one. You must withdraw your adherence to the meaning prescribed by the masses and authoritatively create your own. When this is done with absolute conviction, External reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around your newfound internal meaning. The collective unconscious desperately wants you to adopt its interpretations, because, by conforming, you remain predictable, controllable, and neatly contained. But the moment you start generating your own meanings, when you begin to inhabit realities that stand in direct contradiction to what everyone else considers possible, you instantly become dangerous. Not dangerous to yourself, but dangerous to the system that requires your predictable compliance. This is precisely why most people will actively fight you when you embark on this path. They will label you delusional, unrealistic, and accuse you of living in a sheer fantasy. They are not trying to safeguard you. They are trying to shield themselves from the profound discomfort of watching you escape the very prison they still believe is utterly inescapable. Your liberation dismantles the justification they use for remaining trapped. If you are prepared to fundamentally reshape your world, subscribe now, because everything I have discussed is merely the threshold. The full Jungian path is deeper, darker, and infinitely more powerful. And if you dare to traverse it, you will unlock capabilities that the majority of humanity remains oblivious to. So, here is my final question for you. Drop your answer in the comments below. What fact in your life are you finally ready to ignore? Not the concrete physical reality, but the limiting meaning everyone else has assigned to it. The limitation you have been conditioned to accept. What are you ready to stop validating with your belief? Because the instant you withdraw that belief, the very moment you fully inhabit a psychic reality where that limitation is no longer true, everything changes. Not eventually, not gradually. The instant your conviction becomes absolute, reality glitches. And when reality glitches, manifestation is instantaneous.